I particularly want to talk about the first one, this whole question of evidence-based. And what exactly does that mean? If, for instance, somebody tells me, as I was taught by my physics master when I was at school, if I'm told that Galileo's laws work or something like that, and then the physics master says, well, let's do some experiments to show you exactly how this sort of thing does, and we swing some pendulums back and forth and that sort of thing. Now, I take it that that's an evidence-based belief that I'm going to go away with, that missiles go in parabolas rather than in circles or regular circles or something like that. Now, that I see as evidence-based. Now, let's go back to the whole question of God. As I said, I don't want to take evidence out of the story, but I'm worried about evidence being used to justify these beliefs in God. I believe in design because I believe in God. I do not believe in God because I believe in design. Whereas I think in the physics case, I do believe in Galileo's laws because I believe that the physical evidence was there. So it seems to me obvious that any Christian is going to look at the world and interpret the world in an evidence-based way. I mean, for instance, think about the difference between Heinrich Himmler and Sophie Scholl, who died on the guillotine because she was a member of the White Rose group in Munich. Surely anybody who's a Christian is going to interpret these actions, and it's going to be evidence-based in that sort of sense, that yes, that I see here is a case of a person who is made in the image of God, and that's what makes them evil. If they were just a wild dog, they would be dangerous, but they wouldn't be evil. Whereas as a Christian, I would see Heinrich Himmler as deeply evil, whereas I'd see Sophie Scholl as transcendently good. So it's evidence-based in that sense, but it's not proving my beliefs. My beliefs are something that I have through faith. It really is a question, folks, of Saul on the way to Damascus. Saul was not, met by somebody who says, by the way, Saul, I'd like to introduce you to the ontological argument. I think, if we spend a couple of hours talking this one through, or we talk about the argument from design, and Saul says, you're right, I'm on the way to Damascus, and now I believe in God. It didn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. It's the gift of God. That's the basis of Christianity.
But hang on, Michael. Hang on. You see, Paul was convinced. What was the evidence? An appearance of the risen Christ. That's what started Christianity. It was the appearance of the risen Christ and the fact that there was evidence of the other kind for his resurrection that launched Christianity on the world. And I'm intrigued by your example, the moral example you gave. You see, you mentioned what I would call testability. You can test Newton's laws and all this kind of thing. And I'm constantly up against the question, how can you as a scientist believe this stuff when it's not testable? And I say, who said it isn't testable? You see, why am I sitting here as a Christian? Because I've tested the claims that Christ has made. Let me give you one simple example. We might want to deal with this later on, I don't know, but Christ promises that those who trust him and receive him will receive peace with God and forgiveness and a new life and a new power. I've seen that happen to me and to people endless times. And when you see 2 and 2 make 4 all the time, you begin to believe that 2 and 2 make 4. I think it's eminently testable. And so, to come back on Michael's side for a moment, I think there are different levels of argument, Michael. You mentioned testing laws in a laboratory, but there are many things in science, as we know, that are not testable. You can't test the origin of life in the lab. You have to make an inference to the best explanation in the past. And that is true of many things. So for me, the evidence on which my faith is based is cumulative. Part of it is objective, intellectual, arguments and all this kind of thing. But a great deal of it has to do with the evidence of, does it actually work in life?
Why doesn't that satisfy you, this
Well, there's a couple of things I want to say. I think that John and I probably have a very different take on the resurrection. I have a feeling that for you, John, proving that it actually happened physically is very important to you. And you're the sort of person who says, well, look at the fact that it was women who reported on this, and women would not normally take, and so this must be significant and all, must be true. Whereas, as a conservative non-believer, I think the physical resurrection is totally unimportant. I think that what is important is that those disciples on the third day who were downcast, who felt that seen this man, put to death in the most horrible way, suddenly said, our Creator lives. And that was within them. Whether there were laws to prove this, I think is irrelevant. So as I say, I take my religion much more at a spiritual level.
I thought you were the atheist in this conversation.
Yeah. I said, if I did, I'm a very good.
But I'm beginning to worry that you're not an evidence-based atheist. You see, to say that the resurrection is irrelevant, I find utterly astonishing.
The physical resurrection.
Yes,
I did not say the resurrection was irrelevant.
Well,
I think the resurrection for a Christian is the key moment.
But just a minute, the word anastasis in Greek means standing up again. It is a physical resurrection. And its significance is vast. Here, all of us are faced with physical death. If the problem of physical death has actually been solved historically, I want to know about it. To say it's irrelevant, I just don't understand, especially from a philosopher.